Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio, where we provide actionable health information on a week-to-week basis that can help you improve your life. Feel free, head over to justinhealth.com, where we have various opt-in video series on more in-depth health topics such as female hormones, thyroid, and gut health. Also, while you're there, feel free and schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or my colleagues. We're available worldwide to provide natural health support for any of your major health issues. Again, welcome to the podcast and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about how to hack your alcohol consumption. Again, people are out there, they're going to want to have a little bit of alcohol now and then, maybe at the end of the week, maybe to kind of signify like, hey, you know, the week's over, whatever it is, you're relaxing, it's summer, it's fall. How can we do it in a way that's, one, not going to damage your body, but two, we can also hack the hangover so we can do it responsibly and mitigate some of the health consequences. All right, Evan, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Oh, doing really well. Excited to dive into this thing with you. Read a quick article from USA Today that said that since all the shutdown stuff happened, that alcohol sales, does that contribute to consumption as well? I'm sure it does. It didn't say alcohol consumption.
People aren't buying it, not consuming it.
Yeah. So it said alcohol sales are up 27%. And this was since June. So that's a big bump in alcohol sales, and people are stressed out. I mean, you and I are working with clients every day, all day, people that have been laid off or furloughed or lost jobs or kids can't go back to school or whatever else is going on with them. And so what are people going to do when they're stressed? Well, hopefully they go meditate and go to the park, but they're probably going to have extra alcohol too. And so we don't want people to make themselves sick. We don't want hangovers. We don't want gut damage. We don't want increased issues with blood sugar. We don't want increased issues with gut permeability. We don't want candida overgrowth. We don't want all those things to happen. We don't want adrenal stress and sleep issues that then affect energy and motivation and productivity. So, you know, alcohol can affect all of the body systems because of the impact on potentially blood sugar and adrenals and gut and all of it. And so I think there is a way to do it smartly, which is what we're going to dive into today.
100%. So everyone talks about alcohol being a toxin, right? Well, alcohol essentially is ethyl alcohol, and your liver has to metabolize that and break it down. So the metabolism goes like this: alcohol, ethyl alcohol, methyl alcohol, that's like a toxin, right? Ethyl alcohol is the alcohol that we consume. That gets converted into acetaldehyde, and this enzyme here, right? This whole enzyme, it goes alcohol to acetaldehyde, and this is what alcohol dehydrogenase 2 right here, from alcohol to acetaldehyde, and then acetaldehyde gets converted to acetic acid, which is basically apple cider vinegar. Okay. Now, acetaldehyde is the same compound that fungus or candida actually produces. And that's why candida can actually make you feel a little bit drunk. Really, the big stressor, the big hangover stressor is this acetaldehyde. Usually the body's pretty efficient at taking alcohol and clearing it to acetaldehyde. It's the acetaldehyde process that really has to go from acetaldehyde to the acetic acid right here. And we talked about this earlier. I think it was Asian descent, right? Asian descent has a very, they're really efficient at taking alcohol and going to acetaldehyde, but they have a hard time of going acetaldehyde to acetic acid. So this acetaldehyde increases. And this acetaldehyde has a, let's say, histamine-like effect. So high amounts of acetaldehyde can really increase that flushing kind of feeling. And so a lot of people use the medication called Pepcid AC, which is an H2 blocker. H2 blockers are an antihistamine, and what that does is antihistamines take the alcohol to acetaldehyde conversion, they slow it down. So Asians, they're so fast at it, they increase their acetaldehyde like this. Acetaldehyde goes up, and so what they're doing is they're taking a H2 blocker to slow down the alcohol to acetaldehyde conversion. Again, it may help with the facial flushing and the histamine, but not good on the liver because it's creating more of the alcohol is basically surrounding that liver, so your liver has to deal with the alcohol longer. It's like you're clogging up the coffee filter and it's taking way longer to filter that out.
Yep, you're saying acetaldehyde. I think how you pronounce it is acetaldehyde.
Acetal alcohol, yeah. I've always pronounced it acetaldehyde. I think someone where I learned about it 10 years ago, they said it that way. I've heard it both ways, but yeah, acetal alcohol, acetaldehyde, something like that. So that's going to be how it's spelled.
Yeah, it's a big word. And you mentioned the issue with fungal overgrowth, and we've seen that a lot with people. Now, when we're talking about brain fog, you and I have done so many podcasts on cognitive function issues, brain fog, anxiety, depression, those kind of things. So if you're somebody who has a candida problem, maybe we should briefly go into this. If you have a candida problem, you're probably not a good candidate for it. Now, could you get away with a little bit here and there? Maybe so. But if I have clients where we see that they've got major brain fog, they have cognitive problems, they have memory problems, they go into a room and they forget why they're in there, they lose their keys all the time, that kind of thing, and they show up with candida on their labs, I'm going to tell them, hey, best case scenario, the question always comes up, Evan, what about alcohol? I'll say, based on what's going on, probably wise to stay away from it for a month or two while we get your gut under control. And then let's add it back in later at a small amount and see how you do. So I think there are some cases where, you and I work with quite a lot of people that are quite sick and they don't feel very well. So in those cases, we may try to say, hey, you can hack it like we're going to talk about today, or maybe just stay away. Let's get your gut in better shape. Let's get your liver in better shape, especially if there's a big mold problem. I'm going to say, man, your liver already needs help. Or if we test their chemical profile and we see they got a ton of pesticide or herbicide, it's like, really don't want to add any more toxins to the bucket. So I personally try to stray people away from it, but at a certain point, you know that people want to live their life and have fun, and that's one of the ways people in modern society have fun. So then we go into the hacks.
Exactly. So just kind of talking about the alcohol metabolism one more time, right? We have ethanol, that's our alcohol. That goes to acetaldehyde, acetaldehyde, right? The enzyme that's responsible for that conversion, guess what it is? It's catalase. And catalase is a glutathione-dependent enzyme. So having good glutathione function helps you go alcohol, ethanol, to acetaldehyde. That's glutathione-dependent. That's catalase. And then acetaldehyde to acetic acid or acetate, right? That's going to be your apple cider vinegar. This is alcohol dehydrogenase 2, ALDH2. Okay, and so this is the enzyme a lot of people have a hard time with the Asians. They have a hard time clearing that, and so the acetaldehyde goes up really high. So big things I want to highlight here, we'll talk about it in the strategy standpoint. Glutathione's good because glutathione clears the alcohol out of your system fast. So things like N-acetylcysteine, liposomal glutathione, acetylglutathione, vitamin C, milk thistle, things that help increase catalase, clear the alcohol out of your body faster. That's less stress on the liver. But then now we have this acetaldehyde thing that has to happen next. And so typically, I'm gonna guarantee that ALDH is going to be supported and boosted via glutathione and a lot of those nutrients some way, shape, or form. So I'll try to pull that up here as well on the enzyme standpoint. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think milk thistle is something that's pretty cool too. I don't have any papers that are just specifically on milk thistle by itself, but we know milk thistle is very, very beneficial for protecting the liver. So I think if you were to take, which you and I have several of our own, like a liver complex, where maybe you've got some NAC milk thistle, which the active ingredient is silymarin, and that helps to act as an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory in the hepatic cells. And here we go. I've actually got something right here that the milk thistle is going to help metabolize toxic compounds, lowering the damage to the liver cells in the process.
Correct.
So there's a guy here, Dr. Weston Childs, who was talking about silymarin, and he said, although it's helpful, he said it's not a cure-all, and it doesn't reduce all the damage from drinking in excess. However, it can help heal the process once the person has stopped drinking, blah, 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 blah. So apparently Germans in Germany, apparently they're recommending milk thistle to treat liver toxicity. So long story short, I mean, any of the stuff we're typically doing clinically to help the liver is going to be beneficial and protective. Now, here's one funny thing. So the wine industry, it's all about resveratrol, right? It's like resveratrol wine.
Right.
But according to just looking at some of these labels and the actual amount of milligrams of resveratrol you're getting in red wine, you would literally have to drink like 100 bottles to get the amount of resveratrol that you would get in a single pill.
Supplement, I know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's a little off there. I mean, there's a lot of blue zones these are very healthy parts of the world that live a very long time, into the hundreds, over 100, and they do consume some alcohol. So I don't think alcohol should be looked at like it's this unbelievable toxin on the body. I mean, I think there may be a mild stress to it, right? But exercise is a stress, right? So I think having a little bit of stress on the body does help with adaptation. The key is allowing your body to receive that stress and allow you to be able to adapt to it as efficiently as possible, instead of it being the stressor you put in your bucket that causes your bucket to overflow. Now it's going to be the stressor that helps make your body a little bit stronger. But just getting back here briefly, I found one article here talking about acetaldehyde, and it talks about the fact that cysteine and glycine, again, which are the two major backbones to making glutathione. What's glutathione? It's a tripeptide, right? Tri meaning three. Glutamine, glycine, cysteine are the three amino acids in glutathione. So it talks about long-lived sulfur-containing biomolecules, including cysteine and glycine, that incorporate acetaldehyde might affect cysteine and glutathione homeostasis, and also plays a protective role in reducing circulating acetaldehyde levels. Okay, this is one article called Binding of Acetaldehyde to a Glutathione Metabolite. So glutathione does bind up acetaldehyde. So we talked about N-acetylcysteine, we talked about glycine in bone broth, where we are now, glutamine. We also talked about things like milk thistle, or silymarin, which are actually a glutathione recycler. So is cordyceps. It helps maintain the recycling of glutathione. And then, of course, taking liposomal glutathione itself. And then also things like charcoal, I think, also have a positive effect at binding up acetaldehyde as well. So if we look at acetaldehyde and charcoal, you can take binders that help you. Right here, a study of acetaldehyde absorption on activated carbons, right? Which essentially, activated carbons is going to be what you see with activated charcoal. And we'll talk about that in a second.
I saw that one. So here's what you're saying. You're basically saying you should make a grass-fed whey protein shake that's going to be loaded with cysteine and all that. Make you a grass-fed protein smoothie with a shot of vodka added to it, and you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you want to do it, right? I think there's definitely a couple of options, right? So when I look at alcohol consumption, right, the first part is choosing healthier versions of alcohol. We'll talk about that in a second. The second is, how do you detoxify? So there's a couple of mitigating effects. Alcohol is a diuretic. Some of the effects that you have on alcohol is the fact that you are decreasing ADH, anti-diuretic hormone from the posterior pituitary, okay? So I hate when they do double negatives. Remember, double negatives equal a positive, all right? So anti-diuretic. So diuretic means it makes you pee. So it's the anti-pee hormone, if you will. So essentially, it's the anti-pee hormone. So in other words, it makes you pee. It allows what's in your body from a hydration standpoint to be released out. So that means you're going to lose a lot of water. You're going to lose a lot of minerals. So part of the mitigating effect of hangovers is, you have the acetaldehyde, but you're also going to be low in minerals and low in hydration. So if you're going to be drinking more, having a Pellegrino or having a nice mineral water at your table or at your home, and having a glass of mineral water in between each drink is going to be huge from a hydration standpoint and a mineral standpoint. That's number one. Number two, you may do a binder during the drink to kind of help mitigate and bind up some of the acetaldehyde to help bind that up. And then number two, you can add in some things that can be protecting the liver, whether it's glutathione, you can do NAC, you can do some vitamin C, you could do some milk thistle. Those are all good options. Now, I keep it very simple. I'll do N-acetylcysteine, vitamin C, and activated charcoal. And then when I come home, I'll typically do some liposomal glutathione once I get home. All right, and then I'll also really make sure the minerals are good. I'll typically sip on something like a Topo Chico in between to keep my minerals up. And that's a kind of a really good way to look at it. So alcohol is a diuretic. All right?
They need to sponsor you, Topo Chico. You know how many times you've flashed that Topo Chico bottle over the hundreds of episodes we've done? They need to send you a free case or two or three.
Exactly. No, I totally agree, man. I got to reach out to them for sure.
I found one paper. I wanted to tell you this real quick. So maybe this is a study that maybe it's been done on humans and I just didn't find it in PubMed. But one I found quickly was the effect of activated charcoal on ethanol blood levels in dogs. And apparently they gave the dogs different amounts of ethanol, and then they measured their blood after a dosing of charcoal. And it, of course, it just said that blood ethanol concentrations were significantly inhibited by activated charcoal during the first hour after administration, and then blood ethanol levels remained significantly lower throughout the study in the activated charcoal group. So, this is what they do supposedly. This is what they do in poisoning emergencies in the hospital. Like if you go into the hospital with alcohol poisoning, supposedly they pump your stomach full of charcoal. Is that still standard practice? I'm not sure if you're a...
I can tell you personally, not that I was ever affected, but my college roommate freshman year had alcohol poisoning. I had to take him to the hospital, and we went to the ER, and I watched the whole process happening. They gave him a huge glass of activated charcoal, and he was just drunk off his gorge. And he was they had him sitting him up at an angle, and he was just out of it. And they were just kind of feeding him the activated charcoal right down his mouth. And
of course, they actually do that, because I've heard that, but I've never. They do it.
I witnessed it myself, and then they also had him hooked up to an IV, which is good, right? Because then you get the minerals in. Right? And then you get the activated charcoal. Now, is that worth $1,000 ER bill? I don't know. I mean, you're probably getting $1 of activated charcoal, and then maybe a $5 IV. It's quite the markup on there. So, in other words, folks, if you're listening, get your $20 bottle of activated charcoal, bring 5 or 6 capsules with you, take them throughout the night, and then just get your little mineral water, right? Little Topo Chico sponsor right there, and then sip that throughout the night. And then this is your IV. Okay, and then you got your activated charcoal. That's going to kind of be your little binder. And I have one study right here. I'll just kind of read the conclusion. And again, it's amazing how researchers just do not know how to write in a way that connects with the average person. Let me read it, and then I'll translate. It talks about right here. This is due to the contribution of hydrogen bonding to the dispersive interaction of hydrocarbon moiety with the active carbon pore walls. After oxidation for the carbons with unaltered decreased surface area, the isoteric heat of the acetaldehyde absorption is decreased. All right, right here. This is it. Basically, activated charcoals, which are these hydrocarbons, bind up acetaldehyde and decrease its absorption. So there's less acetaldehyde or acetaldehyde in your body to be absorbed because it's being bound up by the activated charcoal.
Let me point out what you're saying, because there's people that are, 17 minutes into this and they're going, yeah, but I don't drink alcohol. Alcohol's stupid. It's poison. I haven't touched alcohol in years. I'm 20 years sober. Hey, he just said acetaldehyde. So if you have dealt with gut issues and you've got a candida overgrowth, that's why we use binders for people. We're not giving someone a binder and saying, oh, by the way, this is going to help with your Friday night drink. No, we're using binders clinically because it helps with the toxins that candida and bacteria and parasites and all these gut infections that we talk about. That's very beneficial for that, but it just so happens to be helpful with the alcohol piece too. So for those people like, oh, alcohol is the devil, which I joke around and say that many times. If I see my dad drinking, I'll say, alcohol is the devil, right? And he'll just laugh. But anyway, for those people that don't drink, look, the charcoal is still beneficial. Now, here's one side tangent, but I think it's important to mention because it's a sad reality, is that women, majority, are going to go out to, if they go out, whenever everything's back to normal, they go out to a bar, and date raping still happens. I had a friend from high school who I saw at the gym years ago, and she apparently got dosed with GHB. She was drinking water and ended up getting date raped. And here she is not even drinking alcohol. I guess someone slipped GHB into her water, and, next thing she knows, that's what happened. And so the good news is there's a study from European Journal of Pharmacology. What's it say here? Pharmaceutical Sciences. Long story short, activated charcoal has clinically relevant GHB binding capacity.
There you go.
So if you have kids that are 21, 25, 30, whatever, they're in college, you're worried about them, just make sure no matter what, that if they go to a party or they go to a bar or whatever, that they take the charcoal, because it's going to help with the alcohol. But hey, if somebody tries to potentially date rape them, look, now you've got that absorption as well.
Yeah, and I imagine that you'd also see glutathione as being a big one, because glutathione helps run those cytochrome P450 oxidase pathway. Yeah, and right here, GHB is a naturally occurring compound, and glutathione peroxidase, which is one of the major enzymes made by glutathione, does help deactivate that. So yeah, these are all really good things. I mean, the goal of this podcast isn't to tell people to drink. It's just the fact that, hey, we know people are going to drink, and there are people out there that still may drink and be very healthy minded. I like to consume a little bit of alcohol, a couple glasses a week. A lot of my patients do. You know, they want to have a social life. Not that you have to drink alcohol to be social, but they enjoy making that a part of their life. And how can they do it in a way where they enjoy the spirits and the levity that they get from their alcohol drinks, but at the same time still maintain good health, cognitive benefit, good decisions, you know, and really still having a good social life without having the hangover or having any negative health consequences. And so these are good strategies to do it. And we'll talk about alcohol in a minute, but just to kind of reiterate, we had talked about the enzyme conversion. Glutathione is very important. We talked about the acetaldehyde is where a lot of the negative consequences happen. Glutathione and activated charcoal can help with that as well. We talked about some of the liver tonifying herbs, such as milk thistle or silymarin. Things like dandelion or artichoke, things that support liver and gallbladder function can be helpful too. We talked about some of the nutrients like vitamin C and selenium. Selenium is a glutathione precursor as well. And then we talked about the 3 amino acids. N-acetylcysteine is a core one, glutamine, glycine are really good amino acids. And Evan mentioned whey protein, which is really high in those amino acids as well, can be really good supports to help with that alcohol to acetaldehyde to acetic acid or apple cider vinegar. That's the conversion process, and we're just trying to help one either bind up some of that nonsense or help your body convert it optimally so you don't deal with the deleterious consequences.
Let's talk about the good, not so good, bad choices for alcohol. But first, I want to comment back on the blue zone thing you mentioned, because that's interesting. You're talking about the blue zones and how so many cultures around the world where you're seeing a massive amount of centenarians, people that are living to 100 years or greater. These people, a lot of them do consume alcohol. I remember that story of that guy down in Austin. He passed away a few years ago, but it was that African-American guy. He lived to like 113 or something.
Oh, wow.
And he was like a World War II veteran. He was super famous. There's a street named after him in Austin now. But this guy, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure this guy was drinking whiskey and smoking cigars every day.
Wow.
But here's the funny thing about him and all these blue zones. Alcohol is just the lubricant for the social life. All these people in these blue zones, these are people who they have multiple generations of family living with them. They're gardening. They're getting exercise. They're getting sunshine. They're barefoot in the dirt all day. They're possibly eating food that's not sprayed with chemicals. And they have much, much more of a social life than like your typical 9-to-5er. So I think that when you look at those things, it's hard to say, hey, the alcohol helped them live to 100 because they were relaxed. Part of it's that too. Maybe they got a little bit relaxed so they weren't as stressed, and maybe they took life less serious. Maybe they laughed a little more, but then also those people were super social with all their friends and family and da-da-da. So maybe that contributed to the longevity, because we've seen all those papers on like social isolation being compared to smoking cigarettes and how toxic being isolated is. So it's kind of like the alcohol's there at the party, but the main benefit was the party and the people at the party.
100%. And I just kind of want to highlight here, because there may be people that are listening to this and they're saying, you know, they may have a history of alcohol abuse or being an alcoholic. Of course, this isn't for you. But one of the things I want to highlight of why alcohol can be a problem in some people that really have chronic alcohol abuse, the B6 vitamin is incredibly affected by alcohol. And B6 is really important for synthesis of neurotransmitters in the brain. Serotonin, dopamine, it's very, very important. And B6 is important for methylation, for detoxification, for folate and B12 absorption. So B6 really, one article right here, it's called Vitamin B6 Metabolism in Chronic Alcohol Abuse. They talk about individuals with chronic alcohol abuse frequently exhibit lower plasma levels of pyridoxal 5-phosphate, that's B6. Because the liver is the primary source of this coenzyme in plasma, basically it talks about that liver toxicity of ethanol can impair hepatic peroxyl 5-phosphate metabolism. Now, this is a rat study, but they've seen the same thing in humans. And B6, they talk about where ethanol is diminished in the rate of release of pyridoxal phosphate perfused by the livers. The effects of ethanol in vitro were abolished by 4-methylpyrazole, an inhibitor of alcohol dehydrogenase. So they found that the alcohol dehydrogenase drug actually increased B6. So it's something to do with that alcohol metabolism really deranges that B6. So what does that mean? What's the Reader's Digest version? It means maybe getting a little bit of extra B complex on board there couldn't hurt either way. So if you have a history of alcohol in your family, maybe you don't, but you want to provide extra support for yourself, taking a B complex while you consume alcohol could still be a good thing for you. People that are more at a preventative side, not saying if you have it, still avoid it if you have alcohol issues, but if you want to be extra preventative, B complex could be something that you may want to add in on top of that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm like a 1 shot a year guy historically. I remember I took like maybe 2 shots on my bachelor party for my wedding, and then we were out playing pool with my dad and my friends, my best man and all that, and I just got to the point where I just felt stupid. I was like, God, even after this small amount of alcohol, I couldn't comprehend simple things, and obviously my brain likes to run. And so I was like, no, this is slowing me down too much. And so that's what kind of got me away from it. But I may try it and see. I think there are some good maybe stress reduction benefits. I'd like to see something on alcohol and cortisol. I wonder if there's anything on that, like seeing if salivary cortisol drops. Like let's say you're super stressed. I mean, think about like the TV show where you see the guy get pulled over by the cops. First thing he does is whips out a cigarette and starts smoking to take the edge off. I wonder if he took like salivary cortisol, took a shot of vodka, took salivary cortisol 30 minutes later. You think you'd see it drop?
I think you're going to see a modulation of serotonin and dopamine. I know nicotine does stimulate dopamine, so you're going to see some kind of acute input, some type of acute synthesis of those compounds. Now, it's all about the dosage, right? Chronicity of it, you'll actually deplete it more, right? It's kind of like doing a stimulant, you're going to get a little bit more dopamine, but if you do it chronically, well, now you're going to deplete that dopamine and you're going to need more stimulant to get the same result. But just to kind of highlight that last article, I wanted to read the last sentence. It said, the data supports the previous findings that acetaldehyde is the responsible agent for which acts by accelerating the degradation of intercellular B6. So what does that mean? The more acetaldehyde, the more we decrease our B6. So the more we can help metabolize acetaldehyde or acetaldehyde with charcoal and glutathione and binders, then we're going to degrade less B6. And then if you really want to support it on top of that, you can do extra B6 on top of that, extra B vitamins, and you'll be good. Now, I consume maybe, if I go out, I consume alcohol maybe only on a Friday or Saturday. That's it. I do not do any alcohol during the week. It's just kind of my personal thing. I like to have that at the end of the week from a hard week done. And I'll typically do 1 to 2 glasses of a high quality, like a clean, dry champagne. I like that. I like the bubbles in it. For me, bubbles are like my best friend. Topo Chico, lots of bubbles. There's been some studies that the bubble and the carbonation in alcohol actually increases the absorption of alcohol into your bloodstream. So what does that mean? Bubbles mean you need less alcohol to get that alcohol in your bloodstream. So I like that. There's actually studies on that. Imagine the college study where you sit down and you get one group that's taking shots of vodka, the other group takes shots of vodka with carbonated water, and they test your blood alcohol content. Yeah, they've done studies like that. I've seen them. And so you need less alcohol with the bubbles, which is kind of cool. And then you can do a lot of the strategies that we talked about afterwards. So that's kind of my strategy. Maybe I'll drink 3. It was my kid's birthday this weekend, so I had maybe 3 glasses of, I like a nice champagne, or I'll do my Dr. J's Moscow Mule, which is another great recipe. So we'll do a high-quality Tito's vodka from Austin. It's a potato vodka. It's filtered as well, really clean. I'll do some Tito's vodka, and I'll mix that in a nice ginger kombucha, and I'll do a half a lime squeezed. And that's a wonderful drink because you get B vitamins in the kombucha. You get a lot of antioxidants in the kombucha. And then you have the lime, which provides some extra vitamin C, which does convert to glutathione. And so it kind of gives you a lot of nutrients that actually help with any acetaldehyde metabolism, which is cool.
That's very cool. Okay, so I want to talk real quick about neurotransmitters a bit since you kind of got into it, and then we'll go into maybe the good, worse, bad kind of choices. So I sent you in the chat there, I put you a link to this big, long paper about neurotransmitters and alcohol. And so we know this, but it's always good to see it in paper form, that both metabolites of serotonin, which is, they probably were measuring 5-HIAA, just like we see on the organic acids test, I'm guessing. But it talks about here how in humans, the levels of serotonin metabolites in the urine and the blood increase after a single drinking session, indicating increased serotonin release in the nervous system.
Yes.
And so, if you and I both love Julia Ross, I'll at least speak for you and talk about your love for her, because I love her. I've had her on the podcast several times. She's done amazing work on amino acids. And, when she talks about serotonin being low, the deficiency symptoms of serotonin, these are the things that drive people to drink in some cases. So these are like negativity, depression, worry, anxiety, low self-esteem. And then you notice how those people who were kind of anxious and kind of closed in and introverted, guess what? What happens when they drink? They become extroverted. They're talking louder. They're more bubbly. They're more happy. They're less anxious, they're less worried, and that's because you get that quick boost of serotonin. Now, here's the problem, and I haven't read into the paper to confirm this, but I've read other papers on this, and everybody knows this if you've been in society. What happens at the end of the night when the guy goes home with the wrong girl or the girl goes home with the wrong guy at the end of the night? That's because you have this temporary boost initially of serotonin, and then guess what happens? The serotonin crashes, and when you have not enough serotonin, your decision making goes down. Your prefrontal cortex just shuts down, and you make bad decisions and you do things that you shouldn't do. So you have this initial spike because of the 5-HT receptors being hit by the alcohol, and then boom, rapidly declines after that.
Yeah, I think also alcohol just naturally decreases frontal cortex activation anyway. And so frontal cortex is the part of the brain right here, the neocortex that makes us human beings. It basically allows you, it's impulse control. So, I don't know, you get in a fight with someone, you're like, oh man, I really want to whack that person. But then your frontal cortex is like, oh no, don't do that. That's not good, right? You'll go to jail. So your frontal cortex kind of can take a decision that may be a bad one that you're thinking impulsively, and it can shut that down. It also can, because it can predict outcome of actions. And so when your frontal cortex is closed down, now you don't have impulse control, so you just start saying whatever comes to your brain, and then you also don't think about the consequences of your actions, hence bad decisions.
Yep, and then also in this paper, it goes into how serotonin and not only just serotonin, but GABA. Alcohol is going to have an effect on GABA as well. So, people are familiar with GABA. It's kind of the brakes of the brain, I call it. And so when people are doing benzodiazepines like Valium and Xanax and those kind of things, that's working on the GABA receptors to calm anxiety. You and I prefer to use things like naturally fermented pharma GABA. We like to use things like L-theanine to help boost GABA. But, from a toxin perspective, the GABAergic pathway, that's also affected by alcohol too. So that would probably contribute to the relaxation a bit.
Yeah. It's interesting how the date rape drug, which is gamma hydroxybutyrate, GHB, is actually a GABA metabolite. But it's amazing that can have the mind-altering effects of memory loss. So obviously it must be a dose-dependent type of thing.
It is, yeah. I was actually looking at the GHB page, like a data page on it, and it was talking about how at a low dose you get like a little bit of euphoria, but then when you go moderate high dose, you're unconscious, you got no memory, it's bad stuff. Yeah,
it's funny when my wife and I go out to eat, I'll have my little supplement case, and I have enzymes and HCl on one side, and then I have activated charcoal, NAC or vitamin C on the other. And so when we go out, it's funny, I just pull it out and I kind of just set up my little supplements as I'm going, like trying to always hack things, right? And then I'll do glutathione later at home because, number one, it tastes really bad. Anyone that knows liposomal glutathione says, I don't want it to affect the taste of my meal. But then I do those amino acids while there. And so that's just kind of how I hack it. And I'm guessing, too, one thing you could do on top of that is people that are trying to whip their serotonin or dopamine levels up, you can just use amino acids as well to bump up your brain chemicals, right? And so we'll do tyrosine or L-dopa, mecunopurines to really help improve dopamine or adrenaline levels. And dopamine is a precursor to adrenaline. So part of the way we support healthy dopamine levels is we fix the underlying stressors that are causing your dopamine to go to adrenaline. And then, of course, 5-HTP with B6. And B6 is very important because it helps with the conversion of your neurotransmitters. And we talked about the article showing acetaldehyde decreases B6 levels. So you can see how the interplay here. So you can, if you're smart, right, and you have issues to begin with, just avoid alcohol. But if you don't, and you want to engage in it and have a couple of drinks per week, and you want to do it safe and effectively and hack it so you feel great doing it and don't have a deleterious effects, B6 is one, okay? And then we can even do the amino acids, 5-HTP and tyrosine with B6. I talked about that. And then we have your binder. We have your glutathione precursor, and then we have your minerals or your hydration, which could just be have a nice bottle of Pellegrino dropped off at the table with some limes, and you can get some vitamin C in the lime juice, and then you're set.
Let me mention this. The people that have alcohol cravings. So you're like, hey, work week's done, great week, let's chill out a little bit. Yep. That's not you craving it. That's you just going to it because you're enjoying it. Now, the people that have to go to it, the people like, oh my God, I got to have a drink, those people need more functional medicine help. So, Julia Ross talks about this a lot. People that are having cravings for alcohol, these are people that may need something like glutamine to help with the brain, to help the brain feel stable and calm. The people that are low in serotonin, they may crave alcohol as well. So like you said, that's where the 5-HTP comes in. If someone's burned out their catecholamines, they may have alcohol cravings. And some people, it manifests as dark chocolate cravings. And some people it manifests as sweet cravings. And some people it's alcohol or it's cannabis cravings. So you can have different vices tied into the same neurotransmitter. Same thing with GABA. If you're real low in GABA, you're going to be someone who it's hard for you to relax. You're real tightly wound. And you may crave sweets or starches, but you also may crave alcohol. So when you get the alcohol, oh my God, you loosen your shoulders a little bit. That's a sign that you need help in the GABA department, and then reach out to somebody like Dr. J or I, and let's help you boost your natural levels. And some of it's genetic. Some people are just genetically going to be lower. They're more anxious, maybe family history, childhood, whatever. And some people, it's the stress of toxicity and gut bugs and whatever else that's affected neurotransmitters. Like you and I see when people have gut infections, we'll look at their serotonin, and serotonin's often low. And my theory is that, hey, you've got a lot of gut bugs. You're probably not able to manufacture enough serotonin in the gut, and therefore that's why you're anxious and depressed, and that's why you have to have your alcohol to be happy or to do whatever you have to do. But if you fix the gut, we retest the organic acid, boom. Serotonin goes back up to normal, which is really cool to see on paper.
Totally. Yep. Totally. And again, alcoholism, there is some genetics to it. You'll see it in a lot of people of Irish descent. Supposedly there's some issues with B vitamin or thiamine deficiency, which is B1. And alcohol consumption actually further depletes that. So you see it in the Irish population. You also saw it in the Native American population. A lot of alcoholism there. So thiamine's a big role. That's kind of why I was saying that a good B complex with B1 and B6 can be very helpful as a preventative for people that may not be alcoholics but may have it in their family as a good preventative. Number two, if you are an alcoholic, you really want to look at supporting the adrenals. You want to really look at supporting blood sugar. Blood sugar is really important. You want to look at treating candida because of the acetaldehyde in your gut from candida can still mimic that. You want to look at supporting B vitamins and digestion and absorption. And one of the best things you can do when you go out to eat is have some protein and fat with your meal. That's very helpful. One of the things I'll do when I consume alcohol is I love oysters. And oysters are very high in zinc. And I'm pretty sure oysters are also very high in B vitamins too. I have to look at that real quick. Oysters are very high in B12, and they're also very high, and they do have some smaller amounts of thiamine, niacin, and folate. And so that's really good. So really, if you can go out and actually consume really nutrient-dense foods, foie gras, liver, high-quality grass-fed steaks, good seafood consumption, you're going to have a lot of extra B vitamins there that will help fill in the gap nutritionally as well.
Yep. So let's get into the good, worse, bad choices if you want to now. So you mentioned vodka already, which is good because you mentioned it's going to be distilled, it's going to be ultra purified. So if you're looking for just the pure stuff, it's going to be that, and then agave would probably be up at the top of the list.
Like tequila, you mean?
Yeah, tequila made from agave, and so.
And one thing to add though, the vodka, I'm a big fan of Tito's. I'm pretty sure it's potato based, and I think it's also filtered like 7 or 8 times. And doesn't it also go through a charcoal filter?
Supposedly, that's what
Yep.
we read. I haven't confirmed it, but yeah.
Yeah, so very clean. So if you want to consume that, and then I'll do the vodka with a high quality kombucha too to really help improve the B vitamin and nutrient levels too.
Yep. So tequila coming from agave, that's going to be generally really, really clean. And then you get into the brown stuff. So you're going to get into the whiskeys. And then, of course, you got bourbon, which bourbon just means that it was made in Kentucky, where I live.
Nice.
Same thing. Whiskey and bourbon, same thing.
Same
but
thing.
Bourbon's made in Kentucky, and that's what allows it to be called bourbon. So,
Okay.
But that's made from grains, and generally grains are going to be genetically modified. They're going to be sprayed with a lot of chemicals. So if you get a quote really high grade, high class whiskey bourbon, guess what? It's not going to be certified organic, and it's not going to be GMO glyphosate free. So I would argue that the tequila and vodka choices would probably be far better. Now, there's also one. It's like a Hawaiian company that makes an organic vodka. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. It had like a blue bottle. It's called Ocean. It's organic vodka. And
Oh, wow.
It was by a company called Ocean. So, and they make it from organic sugar cane. So that's kind of cool. I like that. It comes from an 80-acre farm and distillery in Maui, and they use solar panels to power the distillery and blah, 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 blah. So it's organic sugar cane blended with deep ocean mineral water. So that's kind of cool. So I think if you could get organic, and that would be smart. Now, people that have allergies with corn, there's another brand called Frankly who makes organic vodka, but it's made from organic corn. So would that cause any issues if you had a corn allergy? I don't know. Maybe go for the sugarcane stuff instead.
Yeah,
Or the
usually
potato.
it's filtered enough. The hard stuff's filtered enough where it's going to have a lot of those proteins out of it. 'Cause usually the proteins are a lot bigger. So usually those are going to get filtered out. But, when in doubt, vodka is going to be the cleanest. There are antioxidants in some of those compounds. So you mentioned gin, which is made typically from juniper berries, which is very powerful antioxidant. Also things like whiskey, for instance, which is made from grains, but typically the distillation process does filter a bit of it out. And it has different antioxidants in there, such as ellagic acid, which is a powerful antioxidant. I'm pronouncing that right. And so there are some decent compounds in there. So your hard alcohols are going to be good. Vodka is my favorite on there just because it mixes really well. And you can get a high quality one like Tito's that's really clean. Then we have like a nice dry apple cider. Apple ciders are really good. Just try to get one with no sugar added. There's a good brand at Whole Foods in Austin called Anthem. Anthem was a pretty good one. One called Magners, which is really good too. And then, of course, you have your dry wines, right? So you have like a champagne, which is basically a bubbly wine where the grapes come from one province in France, right? But then you have like versions of Prosecco, which is a champagne version in Italy. You have Cava, which is a champagne version in Spain. And so I'll tend to lean to some of the sparkling wines or a really clean dry apple cider or a really clean, like my Dr. J's Moscow Mule, which I have a blog post on how to make. And that's the vodka, the ginger kombucha, half a lime squeeze. And that's phenomenal stuff. And then, of course, you have the regular white wine, drier version. You have the redder wines, which could have some other types of gluten in there because of the granules of flour that may line some of the bottles, the big bins, the big barrels of actual wine. There could be some cross contamination there. And then you have like your flavored liqueurs, and then you have your beer, your lager, and then of course your not so good mixy drinks with lots of high sugar. That's kind of the spectrum.
Yeah, you notice like we barely even give any credit to the existence of those garbage ones, like your Smirnoff blue dye-colored sugary corn syrup, cane sugar mixture with alcohol. I mean, the stuff, like if you go out to like an American restaurant and you get a margarita, I mean, it's going to be a disgusting combination of artificial colors and dyes and sugar. It's probably more sugar than there is alcohol in most of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, market demand, though, a lot more higher quality, healthier alcohol drinks. I'm seeing a lot of sparkling water with a little bit of vodka and some even just sweetened with a little bit of stevia. I think it's like the White Claw one, and there's another one out there. So there's a couple of decent ones that are out there that are made for mass consumption that kind of are dialed in with a little bit of vodka, a little sparkling, maybe even a tiny bit of stevia. So not as bad.
Cool. I've heard of the White Claw. I haven't looked it up yet. I'm going to try to see what are the ingredients here. I've got an ingredient label here. black cherry.
There's another one. It's like Vaughn and something. Vaughn and forget. Oh,
So
yeah.
apparently it's carbonated water, alcohol, which I'm not sure what kind of alcohol it is. It just says it's a gluten-free alcohol base, natural flavor, cane sugar, citric acid. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would argue that's not terrible.
You have to look at some are low. There's another one, Bon and Vive are one that I've seen before that just on the shelf that like pretty low sugar. Like for me, I would probably just make my own with kombucha because I feel like I can add more nutrients to it and have that natural sweetness there. But so just kind of giving you guys an idea of kind of how we think about it. Evan doesn't drink at all. I drink a tiny bit on the weekend, not during the week. So just kind of how we approach it. One, how do we choose the healthiest version possible? And two, how do we mitigate the side effects with some of the supplements that we recommend during?
I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
I would go for it. If it's something clean, I would probably go for it. I was just staying away because after my mold exposure, I developed some histamine issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look into alcohol and DAO, the enzyme that breaks down histamine, the idea is that alcohol downregulates the DAO enzyme and then it increases histamine because of that whole acetaldehyde pathway we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So people with histamine issues, people with gut issues, those are probably people that should proceed with caution. But once I feel like I'm on steady ground with the histamine thing, I'll probably try some. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe But here's the funny thing. I've always been so social, such an extrovert, so outgoing that anytime I were at a party, if I were driving friends around or whatever, I was always more social than the people there. And like people would think I was buzzed or think I was drunk because of how social I was. And so people have to drink to get on my level of sociability, which has always been pretty funny.
No, I get that. That makes sense. So just kind of recapping for everyone, right? Choose the highest quality alcohol you possibly can based on that scale that we gave, right? Vodka, tequila, to whiskey, to gin, to your drier kind of bubbly champagne, to your drier red and white wines, to your beers, lagers, and kind of sugary drinks at the end. So choose kind of the best on that spectrum. Metabolism of alcohol, right? Ethyl alcohol, acid alcohol to acetaldehyde to acetic acid, right? So catalase enzyme here in that first step, glutathione helps with that. And then from the acetaldehyde to acetic acid, that's the alcohol dehydrogenase 2, activated charcoal and different sulfur amino acids help decrease that as well. So use those. Be very mindful. Alcohol, especially hard alcohol, can actually decrease your blood sugar. So what happens is your liver does help with blood sugar stability, gluconeogenesis. When you lean up a whole bunch of ethyl alcohol against it, guess what happens? Your liver stops helping with blood sugar. And so when you take in alcohol, you can actually lower your blood sugar because there's no sugar when you take in vodka, for instance. So you're actually decreasing your blood sugar. Now, what happens? Well, when this happens, it can create craving. So when you go to a bar or a restaurant, they want to give you alcohol first. A lot of times that's going to decrease your blood sugar because your body can't help maintain blood sugar stability. So the harder it is, you have a lower blood sugar level. What does that do? More cravings, more appetite, more eating sugary and crappy carbohydrate, and that can create a blood sugar roller coaster. So have good proteins, good fats first before you eat, so you can have better blood sugar control. And then use a lot of the supplementation that we talked about: activated charcoal, vitamin C, milk thistle, NAC, glutathione, and then make sure you hydrate in between to maintain your mineral levels.
Yeah, the restaurants know that if they can get you drinking, you're more likely to order that brownie with vanilla ice cream on top.
Bingo. 100%. So I always want to put myself in a position where my cravings are not driving the bus, so to speak. I'm able to make decisions based on what I want versus what my cravings want.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's wrap this thing up. If you want to reach out, you can check out Dr. Justin at justinhealth.com. He does consults worldwide, phone, FaceTime, Skype, whatever we need to do to connect. That's what you do. We send lab tests to your door. We help you with a wide range of health issues. You can view more on that website. And if you want to reach out to me, Evan Brand, that's the website, evanbrand.com. Same thing, available worldwide. We're blessed. We love being able to help people. We love being able to help hack things where people can still feel like a normal human. Sometimes when you're in this functional medicine health world, you feel like things are restricted. You got these dietary restrictions, and now you can't do this, and now you can't go eat the birthday cake, and da-da-da-da-da. So the good news is you can hack things like we've talked about today, and you can still feel like a, quote, normal human. I really don't want to feel like a normal human because most normal humans are super unhealthy and sick and overweight and whatever. Right. So I'd rather feel like the way we feel.
100% agreed. I can't believe it. This is one of our longest podcasts in a while, but I guess there's a lot to talk about when it comes to alcohol consumption and how to do it the right way. So hopefully the listeners enjoy the extra in-depth and the biochemistry and some of the mechanism stuff. And just, walk away and apply a couple of components here to make your alcohol consumption healthier if you feel the need to engage so far.
Yep, or share the content. So sharing is caring, please do. And I would love if you'd write a review for us on iTunes, because wherever you're listening on your podcast app, you should just be able to click write a review. So do it. I know we're real people. We're not just like the annoying pop-up where the app's like, please rate me. And you're like, maybe later. Or you're like, no thanks. Don't do that to us. Actually, give it to us. We need it.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. We wanted to get in front of more people so they can take control of their health, and that makes the world a better place. So we appreciate that. Evan, excellent chat today. Really appreciate it. We will be back next week. You guys have a phenomenal week. Take care, y'all.
Bye now.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.